Hey Amber, what time is it?
Hey Dave, it's 5 o'clock. It's wine time.
That's right. Every Tuesday at 5 o'clock Central, we get together to expand our wine palates.
That's right. And wine time is part of AARP Missouri's The Good Life with AARP series. So if you haven't had a chance, go to our website, check it out. We also have the previous episodes or shows of wine time there. If you didn't get a chance to see them live, go back and take a look at them. So, as we know, there's no show next week due to the Labor Day holiday, but mark your calendars and plan to join us again on September 15th.
Also, stay tuned to the end of this episode for a special announcement.
That's right. So, today's episode is going to be filled with lots of wonderful information, and we're going to talk about a few of the white wines that we're going to get to try here.
Definitely. But in addition to these, there are a lot of others that I think you should try. We just don't have time to taste through them all. Even if you think you only like red wines or sweet wines, or if there's only one of these wines um, that you like that you stick with all the time, open your mind, try new things. Variety is the spice of life. So you could try a Picpoul Blanc from France, or Torrontés, or an Albarino, Gewürztraminer, which if
Oh
you
my
can
God.
say, yeah, if you can say it, you probably haven't had enough of it to drink. So, not that we promote overindulging
Nope.
ever, but Gewürztraminer, Grenache Blanc, Gruner Veltliner, Pinot Gris, Pinot Grigio, Riesling, Viognier, even a Rhone blend with a little Roussanne and Marsanne, and with a little Viognier, a Grenache Blanc thrown in with it for good measure. So lots of options.
Lots of options. Sounds wondering. So, everybody out there, what's in your glass tonight? Write in the comments and tell us what you're drinking. So, Dave, let's start and look at our first wine.
Perfect. So our first wine today is actually a Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. Sauvignon Blanc grows in a lot of areas around the world. The best come from the Loire Valley in France. They also grow some in Bordeaux, where they blend it with Semillon a lot of time and make a white Bordeaux. New Zealand, Australia, Chile, South Africa, all make some great ones. A lot of times, Sauvignon Blancs, most times, are going to be very bright and crisp. You'll get herbal, grassy, sometimes minerality type of flavors going on with some Sauvignon Blancs. So it's a really interesting wine. The first one is actually, like I said, from New Zealand, and you can get New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, especially Marlborough, which is where this one is
Okay.
from a lot of different places. Your grocery store probably carries it. Your local wine shop will carry it. Marlborough is in the northeast tip of the South Island of New Zealand. So that's kind of on the map. If you're wondering where these wines come from, that gives you an idea. That's a really hard thing to say.
I was going to
Northeast
say
tip,
mouthful, right?
South
We
Island.
haven't
So
even started drinking yet.
I know. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. So most wines from this area, bright and tropical. You can get some flavors of passion fruit, kiwi, jasmine, white pear, sometimes some grapefruit. Just kind of depends on how they make it and how it grows. But let's give this one a whirl. Before we do, what do we have to remember? The 6 S's, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we see it. We take a look at it. We see what color it is. We swirl it around because it's going to make it smell better. We're going to sip it. No, we're going to sniff it because that's why we swirled it. Then we're going to sip it, swish it around our mouths, and then savor it. So you can, if you have to go back to work, you probably should not swallow it. If you don't have to, drink away.
That's really a nice flavor. Oh, and I can definitely pick up. I want to say maybe it's the pear.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, I like that.
Yeah, definitely some pear on that.
Mhm.
Good acidity. You feel that like kind of runs right down the middle of your tongue. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, it gives it kind of that sharp, crisp kind of flavor. And then also you kind of tend to feel it in the back corners of your tongue. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So what do
Yep.
you think? Are you a big Sauvignon Blanc drinker? Have you had many before?
I have not, but I might be. This is actually quite good. And this is what wine time's all about, right? Trying
Right.
different things and experimenting. And this could be well, I know we have three, but this could be in the running for my favorite for tonight so
There
far.
we go.
So one for one.
There we go. Good deal.
So Dave, one of the things that we've talked about or that I guess there's a myth, is that we need to chill down our wines. Is there any perfect wine drinking temperature?
Well, perfect, probably not, but definitely there are ranges where you want to target to have your wine. I think as a whole, most people we drink our white wines too cold, we drink our red wines too warm. Um, Most of us keep our white wines in the refrigerator.
Mhm.
That's going to be 40 degrees or lower, 38 to 40 degrees typically for a refrigerator. I like to have mine start them out at 40 to 45 degrees.
Okay.
Red wines we usually just have on the counter or in a closet or in a box on the floor or wherever, on the
Wherever.
shelf. If you don't have a wine fridge to keep them at a proper temp or a cellar of some sort, which most of us don't, um, that's just house temp. So you're looking at 70 degrees, 72, 74, and that's a little warm. Um, Again, I want to have them at 60 to 65 degrees for my red wines to start out. White wines, if you have them too cold, a lot of times a restaurant will especially serve their house wine really cold because they
Ah,
buy the cheapest stuff they can,
okay.
and cold temperatures will hide flaws in a white wine. It also compresses the aromatics. So if you really want to smell it and you get in there and smell it good, if you really want to appreciate the aromas of a white wine, you don't want it quite so cold. Red wine, if it's too hot, um, the alcohol will tend to overpower. If it's not completely imbalanced at that temperature, the level of alcohol on a fresh bottle of warm wine will be a little overpowering. So if you chill it down a little bit, it kind of balances everything out. By the time it starts to get back to that temperature again, that alcohol will have kind of what they call it blown off. The
Okay.
tannins will have smoothed over, which we'll talk tannins in 2 weeks when we talk about red wines. uh, on the whatever date it is, the 15th, I think it is.
15th, that's right.
We'll talk more about tannins then. We mentioned them, I think, before, but anyway, those will have smoothed over, and as the wine warms up, you really get the development of the fruit flavors and aromas throughout the wine. So um, there is a way that I kind of encourage people to
Okay.
kind of experience this without being too difficult or buying a multi-$100 refrigerator to keep your wine in. Um, I call it the 15-minute rule. And some people take it 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. But if you keep your white wines in the refrigerator, take them out 15 to 30 minutes before you're ready to drink them.
Okay.
That lets them get up to that 40 to 45-degree temperature where they really start off the best. And then if you keep your red wines on the shelf, in a box, wherever, anywhere not refrigerated, put them in the fridge for 15 minutes, 20 minutes before you're ready to start drinking. Again, that'll take them down below that room temperature to that 60 to 65 degrees where it needs to be. And then as it warms up, you'll get that experience of it warming up. So just don't let them get too hot. Wine can cook. It can,
Oh.
heat is not good for wine.
Mhm.
So don't leave them in the sun, that type of
Right.
thing.
Right.
Don't
That's
leave them in your car. Definitely don't leave them in your car. That's a bad
no,
thing. So
we're in a good bottle of wine that way. So
exactly. So chime in the comments below. I saw a couple of things pop up. Some folks are already talking about where they keep their wine. Where do you store your wine at your home? So
well, that is so interesting and definitely something to keep in mind, that 15-minute rule. Um, so Dave, where are we going next? What are we going to be tasting?
So our next wine is a Chenin Blanc. So this one is actually from South Africa.
Oh,
Some of the best representations of Chenin Blanc come from, again, lots of different places in the world. Most best well known are again the Loire region of France.
okay.
Um, Also like South Africa, where this one's from, and they actually grow the most Chenin Blanc of anywhere in the world.
Oh,
And not a place known for it, but there are some folks in California that are making great Chenin Blanc, including the guest winemaker that we're going to have coming up
can't
in
wait
our
for
last episode. So I'm
that. Can't
pretty
wait.
excited to talk to him about his Chenin Blanc. So I chose this one. I chose Chenin Blanc Chenin specifically um, because it falls right in the middle of the road between some of the more um, popular grapes wines, the Sauvignon Blanc that we tried earlier, and then the
Mhm.
Chardonnay, which spoiler alert, that's our third wine today.
That's right.
So to me, you don't have that crispness that we experience, that acidity, that bright uh,
Mhm.
it's that's what Sauvignon Blanc does. Chardonnay has a tendency most styles to be, well, more round. Uh, that's a really weird flavor description, but round, not as sharp as a Sauvignon Blanc.
Okay.
Almost the other side, it can almost become just like, just kind of indistinct and in some instances. But anyway, Chenin Blanc is the middle of that road,
Okay.
and it really has a versatility that places it a lot of spots in between those two. So there's a lot of different styles of Chenin. Again, like a lot of the grapes that we have. Some of them can be rich and kind of off dry. And when you see something that says off dry or semi dry, that means that it's got a touch of sweetness, a little bit of residual
Oh.
sugar left to it. So that's what a lot of them are made that way. A lot of Chenin Blancs are made in that style. It does very well because it maintains the acidity along with a little touch of sweetness to it. So with those kind of off dry ones, you'll get bold fruit aromas. They may be a little heavier in your mouth, a little more viscous in your mouth. You get flavors of like an Asian pear or yellow apple or honeysuckle, something like that, orange blossom.
Okay.
That style of Chenin Blanc is kind of my go-to for Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh.
It's got just enough sweetness that sweet wine drinkers are okay with it. It's got just enough crisp acidity that white wine or dry wine drinkers are good with it too. And because of that balance, it goes really well with turkey and dressing. So it's the perfect wine for Thanksgiving.
Fantastic, everybody. We just got our wine for Thanksgiving dinner.
There you go.
And it's only September 1st, so you've got plenty of
Right.
time.
Yeah. Well, the Halloween decorations are up, and I expect Christmas probably by next week. We'll see
That's
those
right.
decorations in the
That's great.
stores. So, I guess we can talk about Thanksgiving dinner wines while we're here. So, uh, other styles of Chenin Blanc can be more crisp and dry. They'll have a little bit more tart fruit, higher acidity, maybe a little bit of a green kind of flavor, like an unripe
Oh.
green kind of flavor, like a tart apple or a pear.
Mhm.
Maybe some ginger or tarragon, lemon curd, melon, cream, that kind of stuff. So let's give this one, we've talked about enough. Let's give this one a taste and see what we come
Sounds
up with.
good. Okay. Swirl it, sniff it.
So you get just a little bit of that
Mm.
off dry, that little bit of
Mhm.
residual sugar that kind of gives it both a lush kind of flavor in your mouth and a touch of the sweetness but it still has some of that acidity that you feel back in the
That's
back.
right. I can definitely tell, it's where you were saying it would pair very well in between a red and a white, because you can definitely tell it's a much different flavor
Mhm.
and on your palate and on your tongue than the previous one for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It's very yeah, it just it touches a lot of bases and
Yeah,
does it very well. So I like this one. That's good.
very nice. So Dave, not to put you on the spot, but we've been drinking some good wine, but is wine always good for you?
Well, that's a good question. There's a lot of information out there about wine and health, and some of it is conflicting. Some of it is agreeing. What they There's a lot of strong arguments out there that moderate wine consumption as a part of a well-chosen diet, and diet as in what you eat, not your program that you're on to lose weight or gain muscle mass, but it's like your whole approach, your diet from start to finish. That can be a beneficial part of it. Like we said last week, when it comes to health benefits, don't listen to us. All we're going to do, I'm going to send you to places you can read and make your own decision.
That's right.
We're not doctors
We're not
or medical
medical
professionals or
professionals.
anything.
Nope.
I drink and sell wine for a living. So if you look at me, do I look like I need to be offering health advice to anyone? So anyway, um, keep that in mind. But the health benefits of wine kind of come originally, probably one of the first things that came up. There was a scientist from France. His name is Serge Renaud, and he was a noted scientist that figured out that the French people who drink a lot of wine, eat a lot of bread, eat a lot of cheese, very rich foods, uh, despite all of that, they had a life expectancy that exceeded many other nations. And so he started looking into it, and he kind of came up with the fact that he felt, I guess, that tannins, which we'll talk about more in our red wine episode because they're really more prevalent there, um, but tannins help to scrape um, fat from the digestive tract, and they're also rich in compounds that help protect the heart uh, from,
Oh,
I guess, all
wow.
those not so healthy foods that they eat there. So again, we're not doctors. I'm not telling
Right.
you that drinking wine all day is going to help fix your heart problem, but if you include it as part of a healthy diet, it's probably not a bad thing.
Right. Well, I was going to say, when I was in France, I know eating their meals, it's just such an event. It is very much an experience. It's not like how we are. It's just we've got to eat because we've got to get kids to wherever they've got to go, or I've got this meeting or that meeting. That it truly is about sharing food and sitting down and having conversation. And they're big meals, and they go on for several hours. And there's lots of bottles of wine that go through the evening.
Mhm.
Um, so maybe they're onto something, right?
Maybe. So I found an article that I got some of this information from, and hopefully we'll get it linked in the comments, or we'll put it in later after the show. I'll definitely put it on my Instagram either later this evening or tomorrow. But a link to an article that discusses a lot about wine and your health. And there's even a link in there in the article, if you read it, that you can tune in for some mental calmness and watch some sheep graze in a vineyard. Right? You saw
I
that, right?
love it. I love it. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
make
I
sure you
had
check that out too while you're there.
yes,
Anyway,
I loved it.
check
And
out
my
the link to
dog
that article.
couldn't figure out where that noise was coming from. And it was just a nice little calming. But every once in a while you'd hear this bat, and all of a sudden the dogs were like, "Where's that coming from?" And they couldn't see it on the screen.
Right, right. Too funny.
So Dave, obviously, such an interesting information that you've shared with us. But what if maybe some of our viewers have an interest in maybe having a career in the wine business, or if someone wants to be a winemaker, how would they go about doing that?
So if they want to be a winemaker, I probably know some people who would try to talk you out of that. But anyway, there's several ways to go about that, and that's certainly something we're going to talk about with our guest that's coming up on the last episode on October 6th. But winemaking is a very hands-on learning process. You can read about it, but you don't know how to do it until you've done it. It's like a lot of other careers, but it's really
Absolutely.
hands-on. So. A lot of folks got their start working at a harvest, like wineries will bring in people to help with harvest, or they'll bring in a cellar intern
Okay.
to work the winery, and most of that is honestly cleaning, I think. But
Got to
there
start
are
somewhere,
That's
right?
right. There are educational opportunities. Probably there's universities with degree programs. Probably the most famous is University of California at Davis. So yeah, that's probably the big school out there for it.
So we'll have to move to California if we want to learn how to make wine.
Well, actually, because we pretty much make wine in all 50 states now here in the US, there are several other universities that are developing programs and certifications and courses in winemaking and enology and all those things that go into it from there. As a matter of fact, the University of Missouri has the Grape and Wine Institute, which offers services to the local wineries around, and obviously they work with their students through that. And then what they do testing and that type of thing,
Okay.
and advice and counsel, that type of thing. So also Southern Illinois University offers a bachelor's degree in fermentation science through its fermentation science institute in Carbondale.
Woohoo! Go Salukis! That both Dave and I are alums, so woohoo! But
Absolutely.
I don't remember them offering that kind of degree when we were there.
Yeah, I think that's newer than it's probably. Well, we were there probably longer ago than we like to think we were there. So let's just say that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so get your
Absolutely.
degree, get to work in the cellars and vineyards wherever you can. A lot of wineries have interns come from all over the world, but it's hard work. A lot of, like I said, a lot of cleaning. You spend time cleaning drains and everything because it has to be spotless, or
That's right.
it can affect the wine. But that's where nearly everyone starts. But interesting fact. I mentioned that they come from all over the world to do interns, especially like California has a lot of folks come in and do that. Uh, what aren't people doing right now? They're not coming in from all over the world to work at our California wineries because they can't travel.
Bravo.
And so there's a lot of openings out there for this harvest season. So if you're looking, now might be the time.
Absolutely. That is great to know.
Yeah.
So, wow. Wow. That's cool. That's good to know for sure.
Yep.
So Dave, what What are we going to do for our final wine for tonight?
Well, as I spoiled the big surprise earlier, I don't think anyone would be shocked, but our last wine is Chardonnay. This is a California Chardonnay. Um, the uh, a lot of people. So I've found that Chardonnay is a love it or leave it wine.
Okay.
So
Okay.
everyone, put in the comments. Do you fall into the love it Chardonnay category, or you don't care? You can just leave it Chardonnay category. And again, we may offer some information and tell about some styles that might change your mind. But anyway, yeah, definitely do that. Chardonnay's made in many styles, again, from all over the world. From sparkling, a lot of people. Wait, what's this kind of? Is white wine older than red wine? Probably not. Although, well, it's like Cabernet Sauvignon. So there's grapes or hybrids. Um, it's really hard to say. I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that question. But typically, the wine you drink, that we're drinking today, white wines will be younger. They'll be a newer vintage than reds. Reds typically age longer than whites
Okay.
as we consume them today. But anyway, back to Chardonnay. Um, yeah, so they use it in champagne. A lot of people don't realize that Chardonnay is a key ingredient of champagne. And then they also can make creamy oak aged wines that, kind of the typical California Chardonnay that we think about. So, grown in France, California, and many other places around the world. It's kind of known as the winemaker's grape. We
Okay.
talked last week about how Pinot Noir really expresses the place that
Yes.
it comes from.
Mhm.
Chardonnay can do that if it's allowed, but for whatever reason, winemakers are either just tempted or they feel the need to get involved in Chardonnay production more than they do some others. So a lot of times you'll find them heavily treated with oak. New American oak will provide more of that vanilla caramel flavor that you pick up from, uh, from that you get in some Chardonnays, rather than a crisp and clean, let the acidity, let the fruit shine through.
Right.
So anyway, so yeah, so that's why they call it the winemaker's grape, because the winemaker tends to have a lot of influence in a lot of different Chardonnays. So a lot of Chardonnays can exhibit the flavors of like vanilla and butter, custard. Chablis is a region in Burgundy in France. That's kind of the exception. They have chalky soils and it keeps the wine crisp and racy. Again, those lush, creamy textures, they come from a process called malolactic fermentation. So if you hear somebody say, "Oh, did that go through malo?" So that's what they're talking about.
Okay.
You may not have ever heard that. I don't
Nope.
know. I don't
That's
know
a
why,
big word.
but people say that sometimes at wine shops. You might hear it and wonder what are they talking about. Now you'll know. So what happens is after the initial fermentation, wine has malic acid in it. It's just a compound that exists in it, and then the process happens that changes the malic acid to lactic acid.
Okay.
And I'm not sure exactly what that process is,
Okay.
but then you think of lactic acid, you think of lactose, you think of milk, you get into butter, cream, and so that's where that comes from, is that lactic acid that occurs after that transition. So a lot of wines go through that. Chardonnay tends to exhibit it and show it off more than some others do. So anyway, that's enough science technical stuff. Let's talk
Very
about
interesting.
wine.
Yeah.
This one is, like, as I said, I think from California. I'm pretty familiar with this wine. I've had it several times.
Okay.
It's not as over the top as a lot of California wines are, and a lot of other Chardonnays are. We should probably taste some green apple, pear, melon flavors, some nice acidity to it that you don't see in a lot of them. So let's give it a try. See what
Give it a
happens.
whirl. Okay.
It's a good thing we only do 3 wines. We might run out of glasses before we.
Oh, wow. That's very nice as well.
So that one, like I said, it has some of that creaminess. It's definitely,
Yeah.
you get that kind of creamy texture, buttery texture at the end. Funny thing, I heard somebody talking the other day, one of the typical food pairings that a lot of people will associate, and it might be on the magnet that we talked about earlier. You have to check and see. But with Chardonnay, a lot of people will pair buttered popcorn with it because of that complementary thing that goes with it. So
That's interesting. So to have a little popcorn with your Chardonnay, huh?
definitely, you want to snuggle a little flask, smuggle a little flask into the movie theater next time when we can start going to movie theaters again. I guess you could probably
So
do that.
forget the M&Ms, forget the nachos, take
Yeah, take the
the
Chardonnay.
yeah, that's awesome. So I was gonna say you can definitely with that wine, it's really smooth. It was really smooth going down, and I
Mhm.
didn't feel as much like tingle as we had
Right.
had in the previous ones. So
Mhm.
yeah, people are loving that popcorn and wine combo, Dave. So, and I've noticed that some people are, it's almost like 50-50, if love it or leave it. But
Yeah.
some said, I like to cook with it and then
Drink
drink
the
the
rest.
rest of it. So I'm thinking that's pretty good. I think that's a really great plan. So, so as we wrap up, it has been such an interesting episode and so informative. I mean, we've learned about the room temperature. So everybody, we need to remember that 15-minute rule. We all know what wine we're taking to Thanksgiving dinner now.
Chenin Blanc.
That's right. We've also learned some health benefits. And then we also spoke about some careers and some universities that are even offering those degrees. And another shout out to SIU.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs. So it's been such an interesting episode. So with all your knowledge and expertise. So thanks again for sharing that with us.
Hey, what's that big announcement we have?
Wow, thanks for asking. The big announcement.
And actually, I spoiled that too because I talked about a
Nah,
magnet earlier.
it's
So
all
how about
good.
that?
We do. We have a special magnet. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it is also on our website. So what we're asking is if you are interested in receiving this, to go to our website, register, and you'll receive one in the mail. But you'll also be entered in to win a wine tote. So, and a little sweepstakes. But the cool thing about this magnet, let me just share with everybody, it says, don't drink alone, pair it with food. And it has the different kind of styles of wine that we've been talking about, and then kind of what foods may go with it, whether it's seafood or cheese or fish or a dessert. So check it out. It's actually pretty cool. And all you have to do is sign up for that, and you'll be getting one in the mail. So one per person, and the sweepstakes actually will go on until October 6th. So there's plenty of time, but go ahead and get your name in early so that you're registered to win.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us, everybody. This was a lot of fun this week.
It sure was. And remember that we won't have a show next week, but we'll be back on the 15th.
Definitely. And don't, one other thing with that one next week or in 2 weeks, oh, gosh, I gotta stop that. So in 2 weeks on the 15th, we're talking red wines. So if you're drinking red wines with us and you don't normally drink a red wine, even if you do normally drink a red wine, I suggest having a snack, a little
Oh,
charcuterie plate with some cheese or something like that, because we're going to probably try a little experiment. I know Amber doesn't drink a lot of red wines, and
nope.
so we're going to maybe overcome that tannin barrier that a lot of folks experience at times.
That's right.
So we'll work our way through that. So if you have
That
any
sounds great.
questions or suggestions for anything you want to know about or anything you'd like us to cover, leave comments in the chat or in the comments below the post, or go to my Instagram, which is at wine_IRL, so wine in real life, and message me there or leave a comment under one of the posts. We'll post that link to that article in as many places as we can so you can check that out. And we look forward to seeing you on the 15th. Enjoy your holiday weekend.
That's right. So, and again, a big thank you to Dave for everything that he is doing, our wine time guru. And with that, I guess, Dave, cheers.
Cheers. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.